Suds were pouring, all in support of local public television. The Museum of Science and History played host to the KEDT Corpus Christi Classic Brew tonight. Our Taylor Alanis was there. She joins us now with more. Taylor.
Rudy, people had the chance to taste over 200 different kinds of beer tonight. Now, the 24th annual International Beer Tasting features not only brews, but local cuisine. And what's a big event like this without some live music, a photo booth, and a silent auction? Organizers say about 800 people showed up to sip, and the KEDT president and general manager says he's grateful a large part of the community came out to support the station.
You know, KEDT is the smallest community-owned public TV station in the country, and we rely on these community fundraiser events like this to generate our income in addition to our membership and support some foundations and corporations.
Staff says it's also a chance for them to interact with their viewers, and it was a family fun event, so they did have non-alcoholic beverages as well. Rudy?
Fun for all. Okay, thanks very much, Taylor.